My father knew how to hew, or he got us together to learn how to do it, to start with.
And this was all done by hand?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So did you guys chop down the logs, or you just got the logs when they came in?
We simulated the look of hewing on logs that were taken from National Forest in Louisiana, i.e. yellow pine.
And how old were all you guys at this time?
Young.
Dave and I were in our 20s, and these guys were still going to high school.
We worked on the hewing. We started, what, in January, I think, of 1975, right? When we went to Sherburne first.
Yeah, because we were in the barn down there.
Yes, and then that building burned. That they had a, well, I guess somebody left a branding iron, because they branded, when we hewed each of these logs, they had them branded for a location in the fort, so everything would piece together correctly. And part of the crew down there in Sherburne had left a branding iron plugged in, and it burned the building down. So
The treatment, they had the treatment in there too, where they treated the logs with fuel oil, and it was something that was dissolved in the fuel oil, put into a vacuum chamber, so to increase the longevity of the wood. And that's what really made the place go up fast.
So then we worked on hewing until, what was it, early in late spring, maybe May, June, something like that? When then all the hewing was done for Fort Stanwix, and they were starting to put everything together, put it all the pieces together and so on, to erect the fort itself.
The straight logs, the straight sides of the fort were done down there at Stanwix. But this was called a star shape or bastion fort. It had these things called embrasures, were essentially like old time arrow slits in the castles that would span so much angle as they went down the walls. Those had to be worked on we worked on those up in Rome, because all the different angles and stuff to make them up, they were a little more critical than just the straight wall of logs.
And you said you did this kind of the old style way. Talk about that. Like, so you weren't using machine power tools?
Not for when we simulated. It's like these beams in here. You can see the marks on them. And of course these were, what we worked on were called cants. They were already sawn out, and all we did was take a 1/2 inch. We faced a 1/2 inch off the side that the public would be looking at to simulate what you would have here in a hand-hewn building. But we can all of us know how to make a beam out of a log. It's a real simple process to do. You just use your broad axe as a chisel.
You always wanted to start at the small end of your log.
Yep.
And figure out what your square was,
Okay.
because you don't want to start at your big end.
The broad axe itself is, I guess it's a pretty old tool. Most of them were made out of soft steel, and there was a hardened steel edge welded in here by hand with a blacksmith. And we were always told never, ever to hit a knot with a broad axe. We were supposed to take our double bitted axe that we used to score the logs and use that. You use this broad axe, you don't use it like a regular axe to chop trees. You use it like a chisel or a plane. If the log I wanted to hew on was here, I would use this axe in this manner.
That's why the handle's offset,
Exactly, Dave.
so you don't bang your knuckles against the
Yeah,
log.
it gets your hands out of the way, and you just run down the log. And being lazy, you never go vertical. You always come off a little bit, because that's just the nature of a human. So you flip the log over the other way and clean it off, and you end up with a pretty flat surface.
So how many of these do you think you did over the course of that time frame?
Boy, I really don't know how many. A lot of them.
Yeah.
Every single piece that was hewed was something that you know, yeah, and they were all pieced together and,
Yeah.
you know,
How long would it take you to do one log?
Depending on how long it was.
True.
If we were to do a short one or a long one for different sections of the fort.
The longest log you did, how long did it take you?
To square the whole thing, probably an hour.
we set up a bunk. So
Horses.
we took other cants and we put, you know, basically crisscrossed them right into a, you know, a grid pattern, if you will. So you had two that ran, you know, in this direction, you know, about 10 feet apart or whatever, and you set another one on top of that, right? So now you're building your height up. So then when you put the piece on that you were going to actually hew, it wasn't on the ground, it was elevated. Oh, you know, we were elevated, what, probably 18 inches or something like that?
Yeah, waist
Yeah,
high.
close, so you were working at close to waist height.
Then we had the dogs.
Yeah.
Dogged
And then we
down.
dogged, they were dogged in place, so there was a,
Like a big staple.
yeah, basically resembled a staple, only it was made out of 3/4 inch diameter steel, bent on each end,
Sharp.
and then sharpened, and then you would drive that into the bunk and into the piece that you're working on to hold it in place so it didn't, you know, start moving around on you when you were scoring it, to put the score marks in so that you could chip off smaller pieces with the broad axe. So everything would stay in place stably.
Were the axes supplied to you, or was that something you guys
No,
did?
that's Dave's father
Yeah.
had to find those for us. I think your father found mine.
Yeah, he found mine too. Yeah, he found
And then
he found
put-
some of them.
And then he put the handle in mine also.
Yeah, the axes are, if you look at the bits closely, they're shaped just enough differently. You know, the one I used has a little bit of a curve in it, if you will, across the flat face of it. So that ended up making a pattern that was rounded a little bit more. And some of the, if you look at some of the different styles, some of the bits are, if you look at it, you know, put a straight edge on it, it's very flat. And that makes an entirely different pattern.
How much were you guys paid for this? That much, huh?
Well, I think we were getting paid $5 an hour, weren't we? Isn't that what we
I
worked
can't
for?
even remember what it was.
I think it was. Which seemed like a lot of money because the minimum wage in those days was like $2 or something, you know?
One unique thing about Fort Stanwix too is what I've been told is it wasn't your ordinary average fort. It was built by shipwrights, so it had a little extra.
The original or the one you guys looked
The
at?
original one. In fact, I know of one of the, I think it's called the Sallyport, that had a little extra, had a counterweighted gate. Doesn't work now because I went up there and I saw it, but at the time, the original one had a counterweighted gate, which meant you didn't have to spend a lot of energy lowering and raising it. And there was, I guess there were some other little items in there that the shipwrights would have put in, the extra flourishes, if you will.
Spook and I, when we worked at, over at the site, we were paid union carpenters' wages,
Yeah.
which the union, I don't know what union carpenters' wages were back then, but the only thing I know, at the end of the year, I got audited, how did a college student make this much money
Yeah, yeah.
in between semesters?
Yeah, the total length of the job was probably, if we started hewing, they were doing work up, they were doing excavating in that, in Rome,
It's all
you know,
concrete.
pouring concrete and all that. They poured concrete there all winter,
It's all
remember?
concrete underneath.
Yeah, underneath, the whole thing is concrete foundation and everything, and then they, you know,
Facade.
put basically
Yeah.
the logs or a facade on there, right?
At the time, or maybe up to about 5 years thereafter, any one of us could go up to the fort and say, I did that one. I worked on that piece of wood, because all of our patterns were different. We all did things, we did similar to take the wood away, but yet all of the ways that we did it were different. We had different patterns that we,
Different size broad axes.
Yeah, and our axes were different.
different ways we struck the wood. You could tell your work.